Have you ever noticed how, sometimes, your body seems to decide on its own when you are going to ejaculate? It is as if, suddenly, you lose control, and that moment that should be pleasure and power turns into frustration and silence. What few men understand is that the moment of ejaculation is not just the end of sex, it is the moment that defines the quality of your erection, your pleasure, and even your self-confidence. When the penis loses rhythm, the brain loses command. The body goes into automatic mode, programmed by years of rushed masturbation and encounters where the focus was only to get there as fast as possible. And that is where the problem lies. Your nervous system has learned that pleasure is synonymous with urgency. And every time you try to change that, it reacts with anxiety, loss of sensitivity, and even erectile dysfunction. I am Emily Collins, a urologist, and for years I have heard men tell me, my penis is not the same anymore. And when we investigate, the pattern is almost always the same: their body has unlearned how to sustain pleasure. Not because the penis is weak, but because the brain has been conditioned to finish before the right time. And the result? Increasingly inconsistent erections, less desire, and a silent cycle of insecurity. The truth is that the penis responds to timing. When you ejaculate too early, the body understands that the mission is over. Blood starts to leave the area, the erection fades, and the feeling of power disappears along with the pleasure. But when you learn to wait, to breathe, to recognize the point where control is still in your hands, everything changes. The penis becomes firmer, pleasure becomes deeper, and the connection with your partner becomes much more intense. And perhaps the most interesting part, the secret is not about lasting longer out of vanity, but about reconnecting your body to your mind. Because when you control the moment of ejaculation, you regain command of your energy, your confidence, and your desire. And that is exactly what we are going to talk about in this video. Make sure you are already subscribed to the channel, because what comes next will make you see sex and your body in a completely different way. Tell me in the comments, do you feel that you ejaculate too fast or have trouble maintaining an erection? I want to know how deeply this topic affects you. Do you know what really happens inside your body when desire starts to build? Most men think it is something purely physical: the penis gets hard, the blood flows, and that is it. But the truth is that arousal is a dialogue between the brain and the body, and they are constantly negotiating who is in control. And it is in this silent conversation that the secret of potency lives. Everything starts in the mind. The brain releases dopamine, the hormone of pleasure and motivation. It is dopamine that awakens interest, touch, eye contact, and prepares the body for sex. The heart beats faster, blood concentrates in the pelvic region, and the penis begins to fill. But here comes a critical point: the male body has an invisible limit, the so-called point of no return. It is the exact moment when, if you cross the line, there is no way to hold back ejaculation. What many men do not realize is that they live constantly on that edge. They stimulate the penis too quickly, breathe in a shallow way, and let the brain act in automatic mode. When they get close to the point of no return, the body can no longer respond calmly. Pressure rises, muscles tighten, and the ejaculatory system takes over, like a reflex you cannot interrupt. This habit, repeated for years, completely reprograms your body. The brain begins to associate any sexual stimulus with the urgency to finish. And the result? Weaker erections, reduced sensitivity, and pleasure that disappears before it really begins. It is as if the body were addicted to haste, and genuine pleasure, the one that comes from connection and presence, simply stops existing. But there is a way back. When you understand the cycle of arousal, you begin to notice your body's signals: your breathing, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the tension in your muscles. And that is where real change begins, in the moment you decide not to cross the point of no return, but to play with it, control it, and prolong the experience. Because controlling ejaculation time is not just about lasting longer. It is about reconnecting with your own body, feeling pleasure in every second, and rediscovering the power of an erection that comes from balance, not from rush. Have you ever wondered why, even when you feel desire, your penis sometimes does not respond the way it should? Why the erection comes, but goes away quickly, as if something inside you flipped the switch off on pleasure? This is the point where many men despair and make the mistake that slowly destroys the natural firmness of the erection. This mistake almost always starts in silence. In the urge to finish. In the habit of masturbating quickly, in secret, with the brain conditioned to seek relief, not connection. For years, the body learns that pleasure has to be immediate, and the penis begins to respond like a machine programmed for impulse, not for control. And when this pattern repeats itself, it turns into something much deeper, an unconscious reflex. Every time you ejaculate too early, the body reinforces this internal command. The brain understands that it does not need to sustain the erection because the goal was reached. And so, little by little, the muscles responsible for rigidity lose tone, blood flow decreases, and the penis begins to feel less reactive. It is not that it is weak, it has simply been trained to give up before the right time. And here is the most painful point: many men try to compensate for this problem by forcing the body. They increase intensity, speed, try to prove to themselves that they still can. But the more they do this, the more the nervous system becomes unbalanced. Anxiety increases, the brain goes into alert mode, the body tightens, and the penis loses command. Pleasure turns into pressure, and pleasure under pressure does not last. I often tell my patients, erection is not forced, it is invited. When you change the way you relate to your own body, the penis responds differently. It learns again that pleasure is an experience, not a race. That control is not about repressing, but about understanding your own rhythm. This is the first step to rebuilding potency, unlearning haste. You need to teach your brain that pleasure can, and should, be sustained. When this happens, the penis naturally becomes stronger, blood flows more steadily, and confidence begins to grow again, as the body and mind start working together. Have you noticed how your body reacts to a simple thought of something that turns you on? Just a memory, a touch, a fantasy, and the penis starts to respond. This happens because pleasure begins in the mind, not in the body. And that is exactly where the secret lies that separates men who have control from those who live as hostages to anxiety and premature ejaculation. The penis is like a mirror of what the brain feels. When the mind is calm, the body flows, blood circulates naturally, and the erection becomes stable. But when there is urgency, fear, or pressure, the brain sends warning signals. And these signals interrupt blood flow, tighten the muscles, and break the rhythm of arousal. It is like trying to accelerate a car with the handbrake on. The engine may run, but it will not go far. True male potency is born when mind and body align. When a man learns to breathe together with his own pleasure, to recognize the signs before the point of no return, to realize that control is not a fight, but a dance. Control of erection and ejaculation does not happen through force, it happens through awareness. I always tell my patients that the penis is an emotional organ. It feels what you feel. If the brain understands that pleasure is safe, it allows the body to surrender. But if pleasure comes with fear of failing, of not satisfying, of losing control, the nervous system reacts by blocking exactly what you want most, a firm and lasting erection. The secret is to slow down your internal rhythm. Instead of fighting pleasure, learn to observe it. Breathe deeply, feel your body, notice when tension starts to rise and the urge to ejaculate approaches. It is in that moment that you can choose. Choose to breathe instead of tighten. Choose to feel instead of rush. Choose to maintain control not with force, but with awareness. And when you start mastering this synchrony, something changes. The erection becomes more stable, pleasure more intense, and the feeling of power, indescribable. Because the man who masters the mind masters the body, and the man who masters the body regains his confidence. Have you ever thought that true control might not be about holding back ejaculation, but about teaching your body not to be in a hurry? Most men believe that controlling the penis is a matter of willpower, resistance, of holding on until the limit. But the body does not understand commands, it understands habits. And control training begins precisely when you change the pattern you taught yourself over the years. The male body is incredible, it is capable of relearning. Just as you train a muscle to become stronger, you can also train the penis, the mind, and the nervous system to sustain pleasure without collapsing. But this training is not physical. It is mental, sensory, and silent. And it starts with small actions, slowing down masturbation, breathing consciously, paying attention to sensations instead of chasing immediate climax. The secret is to create new connections between brain and body. When you practice control calmly, the nervous system understands that pleasure is not an emergency. It starts to reduce tension, to regulate blood flow better, and to prolong erection naturally. That is why men who learn to control the moment of ejaculation usually report not only more firmness, but also more sensitivity and real pleasure during sex. But pay attention, this training is not about repressing desire. It is about teaching the body to understand pleasure as a state, not a destination. When you take the focus off ejaculation and begin to concentrate on what you feel, the touch, the breathing, the presence, the brain changes completely the way it reacts. The penis starts to respond with stability, not with haste. I see this every day in my practice. Men who believed they had lost control begin to feel powerful again after changing the way they relate to their own pleasure. They discover that the body has memory, but it also has plasticity, and that, with patience and practice, it is possible to teach the penis to obey again. That is what silent training is, small victories that the body begins to record. A longer breath, a lighter touch, a more conscious rhythm. Every time you do this, you teach the brain that pleasure is safe, and the body responds with potency. Have you noticed how sex changes when there is real connection? It is not just about the penis being erect or how long you last, it is about how present you are in that moment. When a man learns to control ejaculation, he does not just change his own body, he changes the energy between him and the person beside him. And this is one of the most powerful transformations I see happen. Most people do not talk about this, but sexual insecurity affects much more than performance. It corrodes confidence, creates distance, installs fear of touch. Many men start avoiding sex because they do not want to disappoint, and many women interpret this as lack of desire. The result is a relationship in silence, where no one says what they feel, and pleasure slowly disappears. But when a man regains control, everything changes. Sex stops being a test and becomes an exchange again. Erection is no longer an obligation, but a natural reflection of presence. The partner feels this shift, the touch becomes more intentional, the rhythm deeper, the gaze more connected. The whole body begins to communicate, and pleasure stops being merely physical, it becomes emotional. The penis is the first to react to this new energy. When there is no fear, erection comes stronger and lasts longer. The body understands that pleasure is safe, and the brain releases a different wave of dopamine and oxytocin, the hormones of trust and bonding. That is why ejaculation control is not just a performance issue, it is an act of care for your relationship. I often say that sex is the most honest conversation between two people. And when you learn to control your body, that conversation becomes longer, deeper, and more truthful. Because pleasure, when shared, creates intimacy. And intimacy is what sustains desire, even after years together. So if you want to strengthen your relationship, start by strengthening your control. It is not about lasting longer, it is about being fully present in every second. There is a moment when everything changes. A moment when a man realizes that ejaculation control is not just about sex, it is about power. About looking at his own body and feeling that it responds with firmness, confidence, and pleasure. That is the real turning point. And it begins when you understand that the penis is not the problem is what the body has learned, and what you can now teach again. I see this happen every day. Men who arrive feeling insecure, saying my penis does not get as hard as before, and after some time practicing, look in the mirror again with pride. Because control is not a gift, it is a habit. It is the result of patience, listening, and connection. When the body relearns the right rhythm, erection comes back naturally, and pleasure stops being a worry and becomes a celebration again. And do you know what is most beautiful? When this happens, pleasure stops being only physical. The man starts sleeping better, waking up with more energy, feeling more willing, more confident, more whole. Sex stops being something he fears and becomes something that inspires him again. It is like reigniting a forgotten part of himself, a part that was always there, waiting to be awakened. This is the power of learning the right moment. The difference between a hard penis and a soft penis is not in age, nor in luck, it is in this exact instant when you decide whether you want to keep living in fear or whether you want to regain control of your body and your life. And when you choose the second path, everything changes: pleasure, energy, your relationship, your confidence. Everything. If this content made you think, if it helped you understand more about your body, check right now if you are already subscribed to the channel. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and comment below what caught your attention the most in this video. And do not leave yet. In the next video, I am going to show you how to keep your erections firm even after 40, with a simple adjustment in your routine. I will see you there.